since I'm not the host. All right. So we do ask that when you are not asking a question that your mic is muted so that we can ensure the best experience for everyone. But once again, welcome to Ask a Therapist. We're going to jump right in and get started. We're so honored to welcome you today to our monthly free community event hosted by Journey to Grace Counseling. Here are a few things to keep in mind. The first is that any information shared today is for reflective and educational purposes and is not a replacement for therapy. This event does not enter us into a professional therapeutic relationship. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with one of our amazing therapists on our team, please contact our offices separately. The number is 866-924-7223. That is also 866-92-GRACE, GRCE. GRACE. You can also contact our amazing admin, Ashley, at support@journeytogracecounseling.com. For ethical reasons, we will refrain from engaging in any dual relationships. This means that we are unable by law to provide professional therapeutic services to our friends, our family members, any current or past students, anyone that is in our life in a professional or personal manner. If you do have an emergency and you are in crisis right now or in the future, please call 911 or call or text the suicide hotline at 988. So once again, today is strictly for reflective and educational purposes. This will not be a therapy session. However, we do hope that you feel some therapeutic input landing into your heart. So getting right on the go, we're going to move straight into our introductions. So I will toss those introductions to Frederica.
Hello, everybody. I am Frederica Wooten. I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Texas, so statewide. So here I'm located in the Louisville or the Dallas, Fort Worth area. So if you're in person, I would love to meet with you. Also, I can see you virtually. My specialties are those working who would like to work through experiences of trauma, also experiences with anxiety, depression, and even some more serious diagnoses like bipolar disorder, major depression, and even some mood disorders or schizophrenia on certain levels. The reason why I'm open to doing this is because I have a background in forensic mental health. Yes, you heard the forensic part right. So I work with people who were criminal justice involved, those who were involved with the courts, as well as probation or receive community mental health services. So my background is like a rainbow. If you haven't had it, I probably have seen it. So I would love to take some time to talk with you and just see how I may be of help. Like I said, I do both virtual and in person, and would just love to talk with anyone who would like to see what their journey could look like with counseling and support.
Thank you, Frederica, for sharing that information. Now I'll toss it to Haley, Dr. Smith, actually.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Haley Smith, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas and South Carolina. And right now, I am providing virtually only sessions to residents who are in the state of Texas and South Carolina. My primary populations are working with millennial and Gen Z adolescents, adults, and couples. And I apply a family system lens throughout all of the populations that I work with. And so I look a lot at how the family dynamics, family of origin, family relationships, how that impacts individual clients, as well as how that impacts couples. With my couples, I work with betrayal trauma. So trauma that has result from some type of betrayal or infidelity is most commonly what I see with betrayal trauma. And I also work with new mothers as well. That population has recently found me, likely from my experiences of being a new mom. And so I've been attracting a lot of new mothers lately. And so I'm thinking to myself, this is definitely an area for me. And so by the end of the year, I hope to get certified in perinatal mental health support so that I can continue providing support to new mothers, new parents through postpartum concerns, and through parenting support.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, for sharing more about you. We are eager to also learn about Monique.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monique Davis, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate under the supervision of Dr. Violeta Kadiva. So I work with individuals, adult individuals, couples, and families. I see clients virtually as well as in person. I really enjoy working with couples. I'm also a certified Prepare Enrich facilitator. So I do premarital as well as marital sessions. I enjoy working with couples, helping them work through communication issues. I also enjoy working with young adult women, just helping them navigate adulting, boundaries, self-esteem. And I'm a little nervous. Public speaking is something that makes me nervous, but I'm human, a therapist, but human. I'm looking forward to just talking with you guys throughout this session.
Thank you for sharing your human moments with us, Monique, and sharing more about you. I will share a little bit about another member of our team that is not present with us today. Her name is Jessica Harris. She loves to go by Jess. And Jessica is one of our newest members of our team. She is a graduate level counselor, which means she is in somewhat of her residency period of counseling. She's in the final stages of her graduate program and provides therapy in person and virtually with Journey to Grace Counseling. Jess's specialty is working with children as young as 3 years old, at adolescents, teens, and some young adults. Her professional skill set really zooms into play therapy. She has been trained in child-centered play therapy as well as receiving training in Adlerian play, which is near and dear to my heart, once we skip into my bio as well. Jessica is seeing clients in our Louisville office and is excited to learn more about our community and how she's able to help. Jess is not able to join us today, but will be a vital member of our team and available to support any of you that may need support with child therapy. So a little bit about me. My name is Corey Riley. I am the founder and CEO of Journey to Grace Counseling. Journey to Grace Counseling has been a seed that was planted long before I knew that it needed to grow, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to bring therapy into our community and to make these connections through conversations like today. A little bit about me, I specialize in child trauma, whether that is with an adult who experienced child trauma or a child that is enduring or recently endured a trauma. I provide play therapy, activity therapy, and trauma-based therapy in person and virtually. For children, however, children especially under the age of 10, that therapy is recommended to be in person for a few reasons. I get motion sickness easily, and kids don't always want to be still. And so for me, it is best for both of our attention skills to be adequate to do those sessions in person. But for adolescents that are older and able to engage through telehealth services, I do provide that as well. I do work with adults, sometimes couples as well, working through their trauma using EMDR therapy, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, as well as flash technique therapy and other trauma modalities. Currently, I'm not accepting new clients, but I am eager to share my knowledge still with the community. So that is a little bit about each of us. We're going to jump into some of the questions that we receive on a day-to-day basis and through our website and from our clients wanting to know specifically about our team as well as therapy as a whole. If you have questions that you would like to be answered through through today's Ask a Therapist event or in future Ask a Therapist events, please put your questions in the chat box. It is preferred that you do message those any specific details directly to our admin, Ashley, through the chat feature. If you have generalized questions that do not provide specific information about your life or a specific event, then you can enter that publicly into the chat. All right, so transitioning directly into those panel questions that we received. The first question, I'm going to toss it to Frederica. The question is, what is something you wish others knew about your style of therapy, specifically as it relates to the clients that you serve?
Well, that is a great question. As a therapist in the community, when you're walking around and people find out, they tend to be like, "Oh, I know somebody that could use therapy." And I'm like, "What about you?" So some of the things that relates to the people that I serve that I would like for them to know is that most people are very perceptive about what their needs are. What they may not know exactly is how to help them get from point A to point B to help meet and resolve that need, the thoughts that they are having, the emotions that are maybe tied to that event, and some earlier things that have happened in their life that could be kind of hindering that forward progress. So what I would like for people to know is that you probably do have the answers already in you, and what coming to counseling will do is enhance those skills. It will provide you with a safe place to express yourself without judgment. Now, there is some assessing going on, but it is in a safe space for you to be able to speak clearly, hear a clinical and very empathetic response, not just someone who is speaking to you harshly or telling you what to do. One of the other things, lastly, and then I'll toss it to someone else, is that therapy does not tell you what to do and how to do it. However, I do have more of a solution focused approach, because I'm not just going to sit back and let you be saying some off the wall stuff and you need help. But there's a way to do that without giving you the answers to your life. So those are some things that I wish others knew, especially the clients that I serve.
Thank you, Frederica. Dr. Smith, what is your opinion on that? What would you like others to know about therapy with you, especially as it relates to your clients?
I would say, because I am coming in with a lot of, especially couples who are in distress, extreme distress for high conflict concerns, that I don't have all of the answers. And unfortunately, I'm not in a place where I can give advice either. And so I get a lot of clients, whether it's couples or individuals, who they give me their spiel, and then it's, okay, so like, what do I do? Tell me what to do. And it's like, well, let's explore that a little bit further, right? Like, let me help you come up with the solution that best meets your needs. I can help you find the solution, but I can't give it to you, because ultimately, I believe that clients are the expert in their lives. And similar to what Frederica said, clients already have what's within them to be successful and to live out the lives that they so choose. And so my goal is to help kind of pull that out of them, not to just give them the answer. As the old saying goes, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And so I'm in the business of teaching my clients how to fish and not just giving them the fish.
Listen, there's an amen for that. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for sharing. And Monique, same question to you. What do you wish people knew about therapy with you, especially as it relates to your clients?
Okay. I'm sorry if my background might be a little loud. There's some landscaping going on. But I'd say just that therapy with me, it provides you with a safe space. So sometimes I have clients and we just go through like a range of different emotions throughout that hour. Come in happy, then there's a moment where you're sad, you're crying, you're just like fidgeting and things like that, you're anxious, and all of that is okay because it's just a part of the therapeutic process. And with me, you can be your authentic self. And I have a lot of clients that try to phrase things and say, well, like this may not sound right. And I say, it's okay if it doesn't sound right. Just say it how it comes to you. If it makes sense to you, it makes sense to you. And that's just what it is. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes, we love for our clients to show up authentically as themselves, and that's where the growth happens. Thank you for sharing that, Monique. I will just touch just briefly on the child perspective of that. I work a lot with parents and families, and similar to especially what Dr. Smith and Frederica said, I cannot fix your child, and nor do I wish to fix them. That isn't possible. And so when it comes to what child therapy looks like, it's providing a safe space for a child to be themselves and for them to feel that unconditional positive regard, being able to touch some of the areas of their life that they may not either feel they can safely in other environments or may not be allowed to. And so when it comes to play therapy, toys or play is a child's natural way of communicating within their world, and the toys are those words. And so when we're in the play therapy room, a lot of times parents will say, well, Johnny said that all they did was play with you and they're still misbehaving. And so trying to help the parent to understand that there is a rapport, first off, that has to be built within that child, because the play therapy room, it looks like a play space, but I often says this is a medical office. These are medical tools. This is an operation room, and we're doing surgery into the life of that child. And we're using these items that are in the room that do favor a toy to get that process underway. And so it does require a lot of patience with working, patience in all aspects, patience on the therapist, because I'm still human. I also am a mom. I also am a former educator. And so there's some moments within me that I have to regulate myself so that I can provide a safe space for the child to be dysregulated and find their regulation. But then it takes patience upon the parents and the family to be able to know that, like, I don't have a magic wand to be able to, get that behavior to stop or to, make a quick fix. And then lastly, patience on the child, because oftentimes the child is in the midst of it and they're seeing how their behaviors or their life is impacting all the individuals around them. And most of the time, they don't want it like that either. They're just a child in a grown-up world, and so the play therapy room is that space where the child can just be a child. And so after they're able to come into that realization that here I can be me and this person is okay with that, then that's when growth starts to happen. So shifting now to the next question. And again, feel free to drop any extra questions that you have. We're going to shift to that, to your questions in just a moment. So going back to Frederica, what do you feel are some misconceptions when it comes to therapy that you would like to correct?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, we'll start off, it's maybe a big elephant in the therapy room, but not so much in everyday life, is when insurance enters into the equation. So we want to let people know, I would like to let clients know and people that utilize their insurance to obtain therapy services is that your insurance is a silent partner, but they got a big voice even though they're silent, a big pen, I'll say that. They're silent, but they have a big pen, and they dictate or can dictate a lot of the kind of care that you receive, from the modality that's approved, whether that's cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR that was mentioned, internal family systems, which is something that I provide, or any other trauma therapy. Also, that your insurance can dictate how many sessions you have, as well as if they choose to cover services even after you've had the session. So sometimes it is not always your therapist that would have concerns about your care or your insurance. It would be more so you taking on that responsibility to find that out, so that you are not surprised if you received a bill for something that you thought was covered. So that's something I just wanted to throw out there on the provider side, but also on a more heart level, that one misconception is that therapy is a lot of talking, and it isn't. Therapy is heart work, HEART. So when you are in the therapy room, as Corey mentioned, that this is a surgery room. We're going in and we are clinically trained, licensed in our areas to be able to hear certain sounds, certain body movements, inflections of voice, even sometimes the clothes that you wear, anything. We're trained to be able to see those things and then offer a therapeutic prescription, if you will, to be able to address those things. And so when you come into the conversation, I like to call it therapeutic conversations. When you enter into those conversations with myself, know that you're actually entering in the therapeutic process, where what we're commenting on, even if it's through joke or through something lighthearted or some serious moment or even silence, what we're using is a surgery tool or instrument to be able to help you get your life into the area, into the mindset, into the heart posture that you are looking for. All right, so that's one piece.
Thank you for Derek. You touched on a lot of great points there. Dr. Smith, what misconceptions would you like to address?
Yeah, similar to what Frederica mentioned about it being heart work. One misconception that I typically find with clients is that sometimes they believe therapy can be a quick fix. And by no means is it ever a quick fix. Like, even thinking about, the surgery analogy, I tell my clients that all the time, that sometimes you've been putting a Band-Aid over a gunshot wound. And what we know about certain wounds is sometimes you have to go in, you have to do surgery, you have to take the bullet out, you have to clean the infection, because likely there's an infection because it hasn't been cleaned out up until this point. It has now had an infection. We have to clean out the infection. Then we have to stitch it up. Then there's a healing process. Then the stitch kind of itches a little bit. Then you scratch it. Now it's bleeding again, right? And so it's a process. And so one thing that I like to tell my clients too is that it's a very collaborative process between the two of us. As a therapist, in my professional disclosure, I tell clients that I, as a therapist, am only as effective as the content you give me. The more you give me, the more effective I will be in helping you reach your goals and achieving your mental health goals and the life that you desire. If there's things that you are withholding from me, which I understand, right? There's certain parts that clients maybe don't want you to know. But if that is pertaining to your reason for coming to counseling or your presenting concern, I'm less effective with the less information that I have. And so it is a collaborative process where the more you give me, the more I can then pour back and give into you.
Definitely. As a therapist, sometimes we are, walking around in the dark, and the more information that you give, the lighter our path can be to help guide. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Smith. Monique, what are some misconceptions that show up that you would like to clarify?
So I'll just piggyback off of what Haley said. Basically, the quick fix thing. It's definitely not a quick fix, not a 1, 2, 3 session kind of thing. I've had people ask me, like, okay, how many sessions do you think I need? And it doesn't necessarily work like that. It's a progress and it's a process, and then it doesn't have the same amount of time. So, like, everyone's situation is different. So for somebody, it might take maybe 10 sessions. For someone else, it may just need like 5 sessions. It just all depends, and it all depends on the person as well. Like, are you willing to listen and take heed and make different changes? Another misconception is that like the therapist can choose sides, like specifically with couples. They're like, "Oh, I'm having this disagreement. Tell me who's right and who's wrong." And we can't do that. We may have our own opinions, but that's not really important. What's important is like, what's the heart of the conflict? What are you really trying to say to your partner that you can't really say? So how can I give you a different perspective so you can like really understand and try to understand your partner's perspective, to not worry about who's right and wrong, but how can we work together to fix this?
Yeah, those are great points. That trying to get the therapist on your side, goodness gracious, that happens all the time. And most times it comes from a genuine position on the client's end, just wanting some validation in their experience. And as Monique shared, our job is to, yes, give you that safe space to feel seen and heard. But we also try to slice straight down the middle into the reality of the situation. And that takes a special skill to be able to listen to both sides. Thank you, Monique, for sharing that. I'll say just for a moment on the child side of it, the biggest misconceptions is that play therapy is just play. As I mentioned before, it is a evidence-based therapy modality for working with children that goes into the life and language of a child. I don't know about you guys, but I played hard as a child. Like, play was a serious job for me. And so to find out that I could do that in my adulthood, oh my goodness, changed my life. But taking that, play is not just for children. That's the other misconception, is that, woe are all of us who don't want to play in our adulthood, that cannot come in contact with that child that's within us. Oftentimes, that's where those wounds still exist. That child that didn't get a need met, or didn't get that hug or that moment, or weren't seen or protected in that moment. As adults, we can still do what is needed for that child version of ourselves. I often approach that with EMDR and flash therapy and other trauma modalities, but y'all, sometimes I have, especially teenagers and adolescents, they may allow themselves to be a little less serious and go into the play therapy room and engage. But when I have that adult client that comes into the play therapy room and engages with those toys and will sit down on the floor, or will allow themselves to play a game or do an art activity, that is oftentimes just very life-changing for them. It can also be an emotional moment for them and for me. That's another misconception, is that the therapist just sitting there, with their notebook and they're writing notes while you are laying back on the couch with your feet up. Yes, you can relax. Like, the goal is for the environment, whether it's through telehealth or in person, to be relaxing. And if you come directly into the Journey to Grace counseling offices, that's the goal, is to provide a space for you where you are comfortable to put your feet up, kick your shoes off, cross your feet, whatever you need to do. And same in your home within reason, because some misconceptions that you can take that phone or that iPad or wherever to whatever room that you can take it into. I prefer not to join you in your restroom, and I can be assured that the other therapist can agree with that. However, I have experienced that before. So the misconceptions are numerous, and we can only touch on a few today, but the goal is to be able to, again, get the conversation started and break off some of those layered bricks that are there. that may get in the way of you trusting, saying yes to therapy. The next question that has come to us is, how do you know that progress is happening for your clients? And what are some common markers that that either we as a therapist look for or that you can look for as the client? And so for Derica, I'll toss that back to you.
So progress is individual. So what one person's progress is may not look like another person's. Some of the things that we would look for would be those that were identified when you first came in, when in your intake session, some of the things that you wanted to work on and see different in your life. And I like to look at it and use the analogy of the ruler versus like a destination. Like, I will have arrived. I know I'm better when all this is better. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the ruler. The ruler has inches. It has all those little dots, lines in the middle, because I forgot what they were. And you're looking for the big thing, and I'm looking at the incremental changes. So being able to share with them the incremental changes along the way, especially if they have maybe a bigger goal that they would like to accomplish. It can be very disheartening if you don't see yourself there in a little while without seeing all of the incremental changes along the way, whether that is advocating for yourself in a way that you had it with your boss, with your family member, even with your own self. It's saying yes to yourself when you would normally say, no, I can't do this, I have to go to work, or kind of really speaking harshly over the self. And that comes out in our conversation, and I'm able to reflect that back. One of the things that I look at that maybe more non-traditional is people who hum or people who sing just randomly. I'm like, okay, that's letting me know your heart is lighter, you're laughing, you're smiling. In working in forensic mental health, one of the things that I was able to pick on pretty quickly is darkness has a look, sadness has a look, depression. And there's a certain light in a person's eyes that you can identify when they're in certain, in certain mood states. So that's also some of the things that I look for. Another thing, we see it appearance. If you come in kind of scruffy, not that you're, not put together, but we can see when more effort is being put in. So those are some of the things that, and I probably took all the rest of I might come up with. So, but when it comes to couples and other areas, y'all could probably provide some things. But individually, those are some major things that I look for.
Thank you for Derica. No, those were great examples that, again, the client may not know that we're noticing, or they may not notice for themselves. And I think that ruler analogy was really helpful, that oftentimes getting to the end is what we're looking for, but don't lose sight of all those small little steps in between. Dr. Smith, what would you say are some markers and things that you look for to be able to notice progress?
So in CBT, there's like this, I'm gonna start like macro and then kind of scale back. In CBT, there's this term for when we're realizing that clients are reaching growth, and it's called acting as their own therapist. And I see a lot of my clients doing this where they're able to externally process their problems and then come up with their own solutions literally in real time without much prompting for me. Like, I'm sitting back and I'm watching them go, and I'm watching them like process, and I'm watching the light bulbs happening. And I'll actually tell clients that, like, do you realize what you just did right there? Do you realize that you came in with this problem without much of me? And I make sure to emphasize without me. Like, I make sure to say that without much support from me, you were able to solve this problem. That's, to me, one of the clear indicators that progress is happening. Another one is when clients are consistently doing the homework. And I see this a lot with my couples. I come from a Gottman method. And so within the Gottman method, depending on the couple's presenting concern, usually it's communication. I do assign them homework to complete within each session. And I've noticed the most growth, typically with, especially couples, with my couples who do the homework, for the couples that do the work. And so those are markers and indicators for me. Obviously, when the presenting concerns are starting to shift. So if you're coming in for one thing and we've somewhat tackled that, if you're coming in for anxiety and then over time your anxiety has decreased, that is a general way of knowing that progress is being made. If we're having to find new goals, like, well, it sounds like you've met this goal. What's some more things that we can look at together? That's an indicator too. And so, like for Derica, I'll stop here. And in case I share a little bit too much, but I'll stop there.
Thank you. Those are great examples. And it gives that perspective that you share with working with the young adults as well as couples, especially when you are working with those high conflict couples and they're needing to know something is changing. You can put that back into their lap to be the owner of that progress. Monique, what are some markers that let you know that progress is happening with your client?
Yes, y'all ladies said all the good answers. I would say also family and friends, because a lot of times the client does not recognize the change that they have made, but they would say like, "Oh, my mom noticed this," or "My friend noticed that," and then I repeat that back to them. So this means that like things are working out, like you're doing the work and you're noticing some change. Also, like with couples, I've had experiences where a couple will come back and they said, like, "Oh, we did that thing that you suggested and it was very helpful." It's like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. What did I say?" And then I have them repeat back to me like what I said, just so I know that like they're listening, but also like they're like putting it to good use. And then I've had a lot of clients struggle with saying their emotions, like processing through their emotions and sharing it with other people. So we work through that, and then they come back and say like, "Oh, I had this difficult conversation with such and such, and it went well, or it went terribly, or whatever it was." And then I can say, "Well, look at you. You're verbalizing your emotions, and you're saying what you need. This is progress."
Yeah, I think it's important that you pointed out that progress looks different for each person and can oftentimes be noticed by the people that are on the outer edge before we can, notice it on the inside. I appreciate you sharing that perspective, Monique. I will say, there are some obvious ways when it comes with children that are similar to what everyone noticed, that behavior starts to shift. They're able to have more emotional intelligence by labeling their emotions and knowing what to do with those emotions. That's not even just with children, that's all of us at whatever, age we happen to fall in. Also being able to acknowledge accountability, and responsibility in situations. That is not always them, and those that handled or that started the situation, but being able to see your own part in it and take ownership of that. I would say also in the trauma lens part of it, that I can tell growth with trauma, especially when we're using EMDR or flash technique in session. Oftentimes that shift can take place, especially because we're going into that trauma experience. Depending on the modality, it can be directly like you're there in the moment in the session. You may be physically sitting in your seat, but you have entered back into that particular trauma. That happens with EMDR, and we're able to like heal in that moment. With flash technique, it's very similar, but you're not having to sit so heavily in the trauma. Instead, you bring it into your memory for just a second, and then we are sitting in something joyous and exciting, and then doing a bilateral stimulation or activity that triggers your left and right side of your brain. It's very scientific, just to put that out there, but you are triggering the left and right side of your brain through an activity that allows you to be able to process. And literally in session, you can the goal is to watch the disturbance go down, to measure it. And so it looks different for each person, each trauma, each situation, but it can go. The top measure marker is 10 and the bottom is 1 or 0, meaning how much it's disturbing you in the moment. And we're literally measuring it and watching it fall in real time. And so I love doing flash technique and EMDR for those heavy traumas, because talking it out can heal, and it will heal. It often though requires for you to be saturated in that moment for a while, for weeks, months, maybe even years, whereas EMDR and flash technique can be in sessions, or a session, or a couple months. So and those markers would look like able to sleep without being triggered, able to be in those environments again without being suddenly brought back into the that trauma response. Trauma shows in your body, and so your body will let you know if you are healed, because it's not going to react in the same way that it may have reacted before. All right, shifting now. I have one more question for the panel, and then we'll go into our questions that we've received publicly in our group, as well as some questions that we received behind the scenes. So the last question is, what is something that has happened to you in your life, within your life story, that connects to your why as a therapist? So I'm tossing that first to Frederica.
Okay, so the why. Now, we need like a whole hour to go into why we come into what we do. And I think that can be in a lot of ways seen across the board with many different professions and passions, not just a profession, but a passion that you have. For myself, experiencing different family dynamics, different educational dynamics, different environmental situations where you could see that a person was really having a hard time. And a lot of people didn't know what to do with it. Maybe give a hug, maybe give a pat on the back, that old statement, pull up, get it together, or, pull it up by your bootstraps, whatever that thing is that you say. I never understood that. If somebody PM me in the chat, let me know what that means, because I'm like, that sounds crazy. Because if I don't know what I'm doing, I can't pull up nothing. So what really kind of got me was seeing the effects of a person really struggling, and the people around them, the environment around them, not really knowing how to support them. One of the big aspects in my life is my faith and my belief in Jesus Christ and being a part of the body of Christ. I see it from a couple of different lenses. I see the faith journey, and I also see the struggle in the mental health journey. And for me, wanting to be one of the ones who can speak both languages, because I do think that it is a different language sometimes, and be able to be a bridge a bridge for that, so that people can understand that you can love Jesus and go to therapy. You can, right? You can pray and it still not get better because you have unhealthy thought processes that need to change. That you can know that God has the best for you and still be living underneath what is best for you. So that has been, one of my passions here, to be able to be an advocate for everyone, but more specifically for those in the faith community who struggle with that. Just pray and let God do it. He's like, God gave you legs and arms and feet and a brain to be able to help yourself. And so I'll be one of those instruments in the Lord's hand to help people do that.
Let them use you. Thank you for sharing that information and telling us a little bit more about your why. Dr. Smith, let us know more about yours.
Yeah, so part of my why is in 2022, I had a late term pregnancy loss. And at that time, I was completely shut out to doing any type of like perinatal work, any type of grief work, anything like that, because I was worried about being re-triggered. But after having my daughter in February, again, I just received an influx after maternity leave too. I received an influx of new moms, of new parents, whether it was couples who were navigating new parenthood, whether it was new moms who were in the deep trenches of postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. And I'm a big believer that when God has called you to do something, it will force its way into your life. Either you go with it or it's going to force you to change. And so I looked at that as an opportunity of, okay, God, I hear you. Like everything's aligning, everything's working itself out. I hear what you're telling me to do. I see what you're telling me to do. You're bringing me these individuals who I'm clearly providing some benefit to. Okay, I hear you. And so I think my personal experience and then just the natural influx of new mommies that I've been working with that I absolutely love have really encouraged me to seek further certification because I really see this as a wheelhouse, especially for Black women. There's I don't want to say not a lot of support, but maybe just not as abundant support for Black mental health, Black maternal mental health. And so, especially in the area where I am in South Carolina, it's not much at all. And so I hope to break some barriers down there as well from my personal experience, but then also because of the clients that I serve.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that very vulnerable moment with each of us, as well as giving us a guide into what your future is going to look like as you support the community that you've been connected to. Now, Monique, share with us a little bit of your why, what brings you into the therapy world.
So when I was 9, my parents got divorced. So I think from that experience, it really drove me towards like really valuing family and relationships. And then I would think like, what if my parents had counseling? Maybe they still be together, or maybe not together, but be able to communicate with each other and co-parent well. So like I didn't have that. So from there, I just really started to value like families and relationships and wanting to see families thrive and talk about stuff. Because Black families, we don't really talk about stuff. We don't talk about boundaries. We don't know how to really handle conflict and things like that. So I want to provide a space for people to be able to like actually talk and learn how to work through conflict and just communicate well with each other. And even if you're not together, like you're divorced or whatever, you're still able to like live well with each other and love each other well and co-parent.
Because ultimately, that's the goal. Sometimes we can do life in parallel with each other, and other times we cannot. I think it's great that you are using your past experience to help others to be able to walk along that path in a healthier way. Um, I will share just briefly my why is uh, I guess each of our whys are unique to us, but what helped me to land into working with children and trauma, I had a wonderful childhood as a whole, and I loved to play, and play was an escape for me from the moments that were difficult, or an escape for me deeper into those joyous moments. Like I definitely played across the spectrum of play, and being able to reflect back on my moments of high imagination, I felt free in that play. I felt like I was able to explore all the different corners of my thoughts and my experiences just through play. And so I know wholeheartedly that I've been placed on this earth to be an advocate for children and families. It took me a while to really nail into that, but with my time working as a elementary school teacher, as a school counselor, as a investigator and inspector with Family Protective Services. And even before then, my first job in high school was a teacher's aide as a PE aide in an elementary school. And so in each of those moments, I loved children. I like it. It just felt very natural and fun for me within my family. I loved to play with the little children when I was a teen, and that was fun and freeing to be that fun version with them. But it was even more fun for me. That's what probably wasn't gathered, is that it was filling their cup and mine at the same time. And that is what I feel now when I am being that safe person for any child or any family. My why related to trauma became connected to that in my program years ago. I worked with Family Protective Services, saw a slew of trauma in children's lives, and instead of feeling the need to run from it, I felt drawn to it. My heart weeped for that, and I just wanted to be a fixer in the midst of the chaos, or a support or a safe individual that could hear it and hold it. It's not always easy to hold trauma, especially when you are getting it from the lens of the child. But even when talking with adults and they're telling me about their hurts that happened in their childhood, I feel that like my heart can connect with that. And so I just feel super honored to be able to do that work and to be, again, a safe person for that. So we have just a little time left, and we're going to start to gather some of the questions that we've received from the community prior to this event, as well as some that we have in the chat. So here's your reminder. Chat is open. If you have a specific question, though, for yourself that requires detailed information, again, this is the point of this is not for therapy, but for reflection and support. But Ashley will gather those questions and connect you directly with someone on our therapy team, or with someone in the community that will be able to help you. So I'm going to just pull from each question that has been received by a therapist. So I'm going to follow the goal, or follow the track that we've been going. Starting with Frederica, one of the questions that came for you is, will my faith community or cultural background judge me for seeking therapy?
Well, if we look at it, people will judge you for a lot less. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, people are gonna have something to say. The other question I would ask is, how much is what you're dealing with hurting you? What you continuing to carry it in the way that you are doing what you're doing about it? Because most people are trying what they know, it's just not moving them to the level that they would like to be in that aspect of their life. And so I would say that the faith community will probably have a lot to say about it because of their view on counseling, their view on the authority and faith in Jesus. And one thing, this set me free, okay? He called himself the wonderful counselor. So come on now, right? He continues to give us, and if you didn't know, commandments, if you look it up in the Hebrew, means authoritative prescription. Okay, so he continues to give us help and wholeness. And so there may be some lack of education and lack of understanding in that faith community. And coming to therapy, it's not that we're gonna undo all of those things that you learned that are keeping you bound, but what we will do is apply truth, which is God's word, to what you're dealing with. And at that point, then you can become an advocate and maybe set some of them free. So that would be my thing. So yeah, the judgers will come, but that doesn't mean that you won't get free. That doesn't mean that you won't have an answer for yourself and then maybe even show them. Because one thing, progress speaks. Let your work that you do speak for itself. And little do you know, in a few minutes, they'll probably be in your DMs or in your texts talking about, hey, what's that therapist's name? That's my 2 cents.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for breaking those words down as well, giving us more of that biblical background of who Jesus is, and being able to be free from the judgment to still get the therapy that, is here in the earth for you. The next question is for Dr. Smith. How can my counselor help me if they don't have the same life experiences that I have? For an example, have children, be married, they're younger in age, all those different factors. How can you still be a help?
Yeah, I would say sometimes this happened a lot to me, especially because I am a younger counselor, especially when I was first getting started. But a lot of what I try to relay to my clients is while I may not have the same life experiences that you, I can still hear your story. And sometimes, too, whenever it comes to me pulling something out of you or supporting you in your mental health journey, it could be helpful that I don't have the same life experiences as you, because now I'm not coming in with a jaded mindset, or I'm not coming in with my own preconceived notions and biases about what I think you should be doing. Because our biases do creep themselves right on in, in sometimes the most helpful of ways, and then the most unhelpful of ways too. And so I'm a big believer that we don't have to have the same life experiences for me to support you because of that. And so there may be something that I can share with you, or something that I can give you that maybe you haven't thought of or haven't considered, because your circle only consists of people who are in very similar situations than you or as you. It may be hard to expand your just your opportunities or your knowledge, or expand your worldview of what could possibly be out there, because your circle is remaining so small. And so that's something that I would explain to my clients as a benefit, is that, it's a benefit of not having the same life experiences.
Definitely, definitely. Being able to have a different perspective than the pool that you're already in. You can only swim so far in a kiddie pool. Sometimes you got to jump out of that and get into the ocean where there's, more fish, more perspective. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Smith. The next question comes from Monique. My family is not interested in going to family therapy. How can I get them on board?
Ooh. Ah, well, sometimes that is the case. Like the family doesn't see the problem, or maybe they're ignoring the problem. And one thing, you can't control everyone. You can't control them and make them do what they do not want to do. So I would say just start with therapy yourself. And then oftentimes, like we mentioned before, like about the change, your family might notice that change in you. And that small change in you can trickle down. So once they notice, like, okay, I see a change, like something is better, something is lighter, maybe I should try. And then they can get into a position where they feel like, okay, I'm ready for this. I want to do family therapy. But they have to be ready. They can't be forced, or else it won't work.
Yeah. Touch on that when you say they can't be forced, or it won't work. Tell me what you mean.
Because a lot of times when people are in therapy, because like let's say, oh, my mom wants me to come to therapy, they're not really there like authentically. So they probably don't see the value in therapy, or they're just not at a stage of change where they're ready to do certain things. So I would definitely say that people have to just be ready and willing, because once you're there, you're ready and willing, you're listening and you're taking heed and you're trying to make small changes. And it's not just because like you feel obligated, but it's because like you want to.
Definitely. Um, I'm going to grab a question from the chat and just kind of toss it out for whoever wants to grab it. What is the primary thing you wish people would consider when seeking a therapist?
I'll grab this one out if that's okay. This is something that I've seen a lot more frequently, one within couples that I work with, especially when there's multiple people in the room, within the family system, but also I see things on social media. I am on social media. And so I say this with the most loving way possible. Sometimes you're the problem. So sometimes I see that a lot. And again, maybe it's because I'm very active on social media, but that is something that I see. And when I say that, I'll speak in terms of couples. I'll have times when the person who is initiating counseling is initiating it because their partner has done something to them. Something has happened and their partner has done something to them. And it's like, we're coming to couples therapy so you can fix them. If you fix them, then we'll be good. And that's typically what the mindset is. And it's like, whoa, let's back up, because we're going to look at this from a holistic perspective. We're going to look at this as we're treating the couple. We're not going to be treating a person. And so oftentimes I find, especially with couples, where if one person's coming in saying they did this, they did something to me, fix them, and then we'll be good. Oftentimes, what I'm also hearing is I'm being triggered and I don't know why. So if we fix them, I will stop being triggered. But typically triggers are a lot deeper than just stopping a behavior. It goes a lot because things are going to happen. You're going to get re-triggered without even knowing it. So it's more of, let's address the trigger. Like, this behavior is triggering you. Your partner has done something, you feel triggered. Let's explore that. Let's not explore their behavior. Let's explore where this trigger is coming from. And so that's when I say sometimes you're the problem. That's laced in so many different things, but that's sometimes what I find, especially when working with multiple people within a family system in the room.
Definitely. You know what? It's hard to look at the
That
man.
is so key. I'll go piggyback off that if it's okay, Corey.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sometimes you're the problem, and sometimes that ain't the therapist. Okay. So you do have to have an open mind. One of the things that Corey often says is that therapists are a Cinderella shoe fit. Sometimes the therapist that you're coming to can work with you, and sometimes that they're just really not the best fit. It's too tight, it feels cramped, I don't know if they're hearing me, it hurts really bad when I come, or it's too big, I don't feel like I'm growing, I don't feel like it's challenging me. And that's a conversation that you can have with your therapist to let them know your concerns. If it doesn't feel like a safe space to do that, we understand if you don't want to come back and you just don't show up. We get it. I mean, it's all right. But we would prefer you let us know so that we can make some changes for the next client, or we could often make some changes within reason based on what your concerns are, what you're bringing to us to be able to better serve you. So the big thing with seeking a therapist is know that you may not get the right fit the first time, but that doesn't mean it can't be beneficial. So be willing to have a few conversations. If you're buying a car, you probably gonna look at a few cars. If you're buying a house, you probably look at a few houses. This is a major decision. So this person, as we talked about earlier, is helping you with your heart work, heart surgery, your mind, and you being able to have a few conversations with some people about that. Get honest with yourself. Even if you, in the 15-minute consultation, you're not able to get everything out, have some things that you're wanting out of your therapy and communicate that to the therapist. And they are trained to be honest with you to let you know whether or not they can provide that. I had a recent experience that with a client that I had been seeing for quite a while, who, due to a major world event, their needs changed, and my skill set wasn't what they needed at that time. And we had to have a conversation about how to help them get what they needed and to be able to connect with the therapist that would be best suited. So we're trained to not have our feelings on our sleeve and get hurt. If we do, most of us got our own therapist to go work it out with too. So don't take it personal. We try not to, or else again, we work it out in our own private time. So really, when you're considering a therapist, just know that not everybody is the right fit for you. If you need to change it, we understand, because this is about your life and growth and happiness, and nothing should stand in the way of that.
Agreed to all those points. We could have this conversation go on forever and ever, and that's the joy of talking about the things that you're passionate about. And I hope that that is notable, noticeable, and noted that our team is passionate about the clients that we serve, what we do day to day, and our community, and how we can touch, and connect to our community in such a way. And so as our time has come to an end, I would sing the old Carol Burnett song that used to show back in the day when I would sit in the kitchen, right? Sit in the kitchen with my grandmother and watch the different shows. But I will spare you guys. But instead, I will extend a authentic and hearty thank you for joining us today for our Ask a Therapist event. We hope you found today's discussion helpful and insightful. We're grateful for your time and your openness in sharing your questions with us and being willing to hear our responses, not necessarily our answers, because we're not the end all. We're sharing from our lens and from our perspective. So thank you for listening to our responses. We love to see you at our next event, which will be held next month, the first Monday of November. We will do this particular event the first Monday of each month at 11:30. And we will, because you have joined today, you will be the first to find out VIP status about every event that we have. Feel free to invite your friends and family who may benefit from being a part of this space. We will also, today was recorded and will be uploaded within the next bit of time to our website for further reflection back. Until then, take care. We look forward to connecting with you soon again, and enjoy your journey. Goodbye.